I never imagined the truth behind 11 vanished altar boys would lead to an unbelievable discovery. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started as a whisper, an urgent secret shared in shadows. No one spoke of the boys. 11 boys. Gone. Just like that. I felt a chill creep down my spine. The air was thick with silence, echoing with unasked questions. Each name was dust on a forgotten altar. Their faces floated in my mind, boyish smiles frozen in time. Mark. Daniel. Little Sammy with the freckles. I could see them in their crisp white shirts, hands folded, eyes wide with innocence. The chapel where we prayed echoed their absence. Flashbacks clawed at my heart. They'd been here. Laughing. Serving. Praying. But now, the church felt haunted. I remember the first church service after they disappeared. The heavy sobs of mothers clashed with the rustling of the congregation, creating a symphony of sorrow that swirled in the air like smoke. That I sought solace in my friend Michael, who shoved his hands deep in his pockets, eyes darting nervously. "It's not normal, you know," he whispered, biting his lip. His fear mirrored mine. We huddled together, searching for reasons among the suspicious glances and hushed gossip. The town had grown cold, filled with lingering glances and rumors that felt like knives. Did someone take them? Was it something supernatural? I could almost taste the dread that enveloped us, sharp as broken glass. Days turned into weeks, and the searches were relentless. Flyers plastered on lamp posts. Candlelight vigils that flickered weakly against the dark. I could hear their names, fragile and trembling, in the prayers. And yet, as time crawled, hope faded. Each day, I felt myself slipping, drowning in a sea of despair, tears festering in the corners of my eyes. And then, just when it seemed all would be swallowed by darkness, a rumor sparked. A name. A place. Forgotten woods at the edge of town that whispered secrets of an unspeakable kind. Michael and I exchanged stunned glances. We can't ignore it, I thought, heart pounding. The air turned electric, charged with possibility and fear. What if they were there? What would we find? The night we ventured into those woods, it felt like we were walking into the belly of a monster. Shadows danced, stretching unnaturally, as if they had lives of their own. My heart hammered in my chest, thump, thump, thump. Underneath the canopy, the silence was deafening. And then, a flicker. A glow through the trees. It was faint, like a heartbeat, pulling us forward. Every nerve in my body screamed to turn back, but we pressed on. The light grew brighter, and just as we reached the clearing, a figure emerged from the shadows. The gasp escaped my lips, breath hitching. Was this the discovery we were waiting for, or something that would shatter us forever? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure stepped forward from the shadows, a silhouette etched against the dim light, and my heart raced with a mixture of fear and hope. It was impossible to make out distinctive features in the gloom, but something about the way they moved felt familiar. There was a ghostly glow illuminating their outline, and I blinked in disbelief, struggling to stave off a storm of emotions. "Who are you?" Michael called out, his voice a raw whisper, trembling on the edge of panic. I felt the weight of uncertainty drawing us closer, yet the air felt thick with tension, as if the woods themselves held their breath. I was waiting for you," the person finally spoke, their voice a mixture of sorrow and recognition that sent shivers down my spine. I could hardly breathe as I strained to hear more. "I can help you find them." A pulse of hope beat in my chest, but it was quickly eclipsed by doubt. Find who? My voice cracked, betraying the delicate balance between courage and despair. It all felt surreal, like stepping into a story we both concocted in the dark corners of our imaginations. The boys, the figure replied, stepping closer into the light. My breath caught as the contours of their face became clearer, sharp cheekbones, hollowed eyes, and an expression that mirrored my own grief. It was Jenna, one of the altar girls. Her hair fell in loose waves about her shoulders, framing a face that held the remnants of innocence, marred now by secrets she was steeped in. Jenna? But how? My shock morphed into confusion. I recalled her laughter echoing in church halls, the warmth of camaraderie overshadowing the distance between us. She had vanished almost as quickly as the boys. We thought you were gone too. They took us, she admitted, her eyes glazing over as they searched the darkness around us. I managed to escape, but her voice was barely above a whisper, filled with an unthinkable weight of dread. I saw them, Mark and Daniel, they're not far, but a tremor swept through her as she gulped for air, and for a moment, my heart felt as though it had plummeted into the pit of my stomach. They need help. The enormity of her words hung in the air, electrifying yet suffocating. The crushing grief that had gripped my heart began to twist, unveiling a different kind of fear. What do you mean? Are they hurt? Michael stepped forward, eyes locked on Jenna, willing her to share the truth, desperate for clarity amidst the fog of uncertainty. Jenna scrunched her eyes shut for a moment. I don't know everything. They took us to teach us. Teach us about life, about faith, in a way none of you could understand. Her voice dropped to a hush, and she leaned in closer, urgency crackling in the silence. But it was more than that. They wanted to turn us into something else, something we didn't agree to. The woods continued to whisper around us, the rustling leaves like distant voices echoing our turmoil. My stomach churned at her words, a nauseating mix of anger and helplessness. We have to go back to the others. We can't leave them there. My voice was nearly pleading now, as I glanced at Michael, whose face was pale in the dim glow of light. Wait, Jenna insisted, raising her hand, her eyes wide with an urgency only deepening the dread. If we go back, they'll know. We need to find a way to distract them first. The weight of her revelation was suffocating. My pulse quickened with a brewing determination, yet my heart was lodged in my throat. Loathing twisted my gut. The weight had been insufferable, and now that we were this close, the idea of turning back was unbearable. What do we do? I asked, trying to anchor the tremor in my voice. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, urging me toward an outcome that could either spark salvation or plunge us into darkness. There's a way, Jenna urged, meeting my gaze. But if we do this, it'll change everything. We'll have to be brave. Her voice dropped, each word thick with palpable fear. We have to go deeper into the woods. Michael shook his head, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. Deeper? You said you escaped. What could be worse than that? The truth, Jenna replied, her eyes gleaming with raw emotion. The truth is worse than any of us could ever imagine. As we stood at the brink of another descent into uncertainty, I felt the tug of reluctant hope battling against fear. The figures of the lost boys beckoned, a whisper somewhere within me urging us to move forward. We had come this far, and though the woods watched us with eager anticipation, I knew we couldn't back down now. Let us go, I found myself saying, heart pounding with a mix of terror and resolve, a silent promise echoing in my mind: if we find them and they're hurt, this pain would be mine to carry. But if we don't act, if we let fear consume us, it would haunt me forever. Then, just as we turned to follow Jenna into the unknown, a rustling sound snapped through the woods behind us. I stiffened, dread washing over me as shadows stirred, tall and menacing. My heart raced. Were we truly prepared for what we were about to uncover? Whatever lay ahead threatened to unravel every thread of hope we had clung onto. Quick, hide! Jenna hissed, pulling us both into the thick foliage. The rustling grew closer, and a chilling realization sank into my bones, a reality that promised to change everything we thought we knew. leaving us teetering on the brink of whatever darkness was yet to come. The twisted branches of the trees cradled us in a web of darkness, their shadows melding into one another as I squeezed my eyes shut, praying the impending presence would somehow pass us by. My breath hitched, a whisper of panic threading through me. Would we be found? "Stay quiet," Michael whispered, his voice taut with fear as he cast a glance over his shoulder. The rustling crescendoed, accompanied by murmurs that slithered through the underbrush. I dared not open my eyes, every instinct screamed at me to stay hidden, to remain as invisible as the night itself. Suddenly, the rustling came to a halt. My heart thudded loudly, deafening in the stillness. I risked opening my eyes, just a crack, and beheld a tall figure standing mere feet away. The person was cloaked in a dark robe, their face obscured by a hood that draped low, but even with that obscured visage, I could sense an undeniable aura of dread. "What do we do?" I whispered, almost inaudibly, my body tingling with the unbearable anticipation of being discovered. Jenna, her eyes wide and luminous in the night, remained resolute. "We need to stay still. Trust me. They're looking for someone else and we need to use that to our advantage." Before I could question her further, the figure turned, speaking to someone or something unseen in the shadows. "They are close, I can feel it," their voice dripped with a sinister certainty that chilled me to my core. "They have no idea how far we've come." A second voice emerged, softer but laden with a sickening sweetness. "Patience. They will reveal themselves when the moment is right." A shiver raced down my spine. What did they seek? Who were they referring to? My mind churned, the images of Mark and Daniel flashing before me, the terror that thrummed through each of our veins binding us to one another. Suddenly, the thought of deeper truths and unknown horrors felt all too real. As the two figures exchanged quiet words weighted with severity, Jenna's hand found mine, squeezing tightly. In that moment, I felt her fears spiral out of control, her heart racing against my palm. The adrenaline surged, a strange cocktail of courage and despair surging through our veins. The fear of remaining concealed was tickling the back of my thoughts, but I had a deeper fear still, the mortality of those we had come seeking. "Let us move," I mouthed the words to Michael, my voice barely more than a whisper. He hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face, but Jenna nodded, a silent encouragement. As we slinked through the underbrush, Jenna barely making a sound, I dared to look back at the cloaked figures. They were too wrapped in their own conversation to notice us slipping away into the darkness. "Where are they?" I dared to ask, the question slipping past my lips. "When will we find them?" Jenna turned her head slightly, her expression somber but fiercely determined. "They may be close, but there's more that I haven't told you." I felt the floor shift beneath me. Whatever weight had been pressing down was unsettling. "What do you mean?" After I escaped, her voice dropped to a whisper, as if fear itself might overhear. "I learned about the ceremony they call the gathering, a ritual meant to promote unity through pain. The boys, they become part of something beyond comprehension." But what?" I pressed, unwilling to waver in the face of horror. "But the truth might save them." Her eyes flickered with a glimmer of hope, her breath hitching. "However, should we confront them, we must decide how far we are willing to go to reclaim what we've lost. We may not be the same afterward." Each word hung heavy in the air, a siren call beckoning us to choose a path that would forever change the fabric of who we were. My heart twisted at the ramifications. Before I could respond, a burst of movement came from somewhere nearby. Branches snapped, and a gust of wind danced through the stillness around us. "Jenna!" I gasped, but she held her hand up urgently, eyes wide as terror pulsed through her. "I know, but listen." Just then, a piercing scream sliced through the night, echoing from deeper within the woods. The sound spiraled through my chest like the blade of a knife. The heartbeat of the forest quickened as dread seeped into the very roots beneath us, each sound amplifying my fear. Was it Mark? Was it Daniel? "Let us go!" Michael exclaimed, driven by the urgency filling the air. The ropes of despair tightened around us, but just as quickly as it all surged forward, another secret had emerged. My heart lurched as I caught a glimpse of the hooded figures moving swiftly in the direction of the sound, their forms indistinct in the fleeting light filtering through the leaves. But then, the specter of realization left me gasping. I turned to Jenna and Michael, my heart pounding. "They know we're here," I breathed, the dawning understanding piercing through the chaos. "We have to hurry or we could be next." We tore through the thickets, weaving in and out of the shadows, rising desperation unfolding with each passing heartbeat. The moments of possible liberation now marred with a shadow the uncertainty of truth thrumming against us. As we fled deeper into the woods, the chilling remnants of a distant scream echoed behind us, reaching out with the icy fingers of uncertainty. Would we find the boys? Or had we ventured too far into the darkness, awakening the very evils we sought to escape? I knew we were teetering at the edge of a precipice, the landscape of our lives forever altered by whatever lay ahead. And though I clung to the small spark of hope flickering inside, I also sensed the gathering storm. Secrets, lies, and unthinkable truths awaited us, ready to unravel all we had once believed. The woods seemed to close in around us, the gnarled fingers of branches reaching out as if to grab my limbs and pull me back into the shadows. Deep within the thicket, hopelessness and desperation tangled like the roots beneath our feet. Each step I took felt like a crash into the unknown, resonating with the terror that had taken hold of me. I could hear the pounding of Michael's heart next to mine, matching my own rhythm of fear as we rushed forward. Jenna led the way, her form darting through the darkness with a nimbleness born of urgency. Despite all my bewilderment and dread, I couldn't help but find solace in her tenacity. The forest, with its foreboding atmosphere, faded away momentarily as the flickering fire of determination in Jenna's eyes anchored me. Yet the deeper we went, the more the fearful anticipation clung to us, wrapping around our hearts like an icy coil. With every rustle and shadow, I felt the tether of safety decay. "What's the truth, Jenna? What do we need to know to save them?" I managed to breathe out in a fit of urgency, almost losing my footing on a root that had snaked its way onto the path. Jenna didn't respond immediately, her expression somber. "The truth," she finally began, her voice a trembling whisper, haunted but carrying the weight of knowledge. "It was never just about the boys being taken. It was about what they represent, a cycle of sacrifice and awakening." "Awakening?" Michael interjected, slowing his pace, lodged somewhere between disbelief and intrigue. "Yes," she continued, glancing around, her voice lowering even further. "They believe that these boys will serve as vessels to something powerful, something otherworldly. It's why they look for them, why they have to perform their rituals under the night sky. The gathering, it's not merely a ceremony, it's an invocation." Each word she spoke felt like another stone cast into a dark lake, rippling through the surface of my mind. I couldn't comprehend the enormity of it, how at any moment, we might stumble upon a horror beyond my wildest imagination. Yet there was an unsettling curiosity, an insatiable hunger to understand how such malevolence could exist in crevices of our world untouched by light. "What do we do?" I breathed, my voice barely a whisper in the suffocating air. My throat was dry, constricted with urgency and the unrelenting need for action. "If we find them, we have to convince them of who they are," Jenna responded, her resolve fortifying. "It's possible they've been manipulated into believing they don't deserve to be saved, don't remember themselves as boys. They need to know, they need to wake up." Her words hung thick between us, a challenge, a possibility. The image of Mark and Daniel, lost in the fury of their captors, flashed through my mind, deepening the chasm of my resolve. There had to be a way. I couldn't accept that all hope was lost if there was even the slightest chance to bring them back. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the night, snapping me back into the moment. The air vibrated, thick with a chilling energy, and I froze, grasping for clarity. A moment later, the sound intensified, a guttural growl shivered through the ground, writhing like an animal not far from us. "Did you hear that?" Michael stammered, panic seeping into his voice. "Run!" Jenna urged, breaking into a sprint, reinvigorated by the nearness of danger. We dashed through the dense foliage, branches snatching at our clothes, tearing at our skin as we thundered deeper into the woods. I gasped, breath hitching, trying to push my legs faster, against the weight of anxiety clawing at my chest. My mind reeled with the implications of Jenna's revelation, boys used as vessels. The thought sank deep into my bones, chilled by the darkness that pursued us. As we stumbled into a small clearing, the moonlight abruptly illuminated a circular space, casting long shadows that twisted into grotesque figures. A low platform cracked the earth's surface, a sight that sent shivers spiraling down my spine as I saw markings etched into the stones. Symbols I'd never seen before. Rippling shadows danced on the stones, whispering secrets that clawed at my sanity. "Jenna, what is this?" I rasped, unable to tear my gaze from the sinister symbols, each one feeling like a warning. It was as if the earth itself cried out against the encroaching darkness. And then it happened. In a terrifying flash, the air shifted again, the ominous growl from earlier morphed into a cacophony of voices. No, not voices, I realized they were chants woven together from the very air that surrounded us. In that heartbeat, Jenna's eyes widened, realization dawning like the first light of dawn breaking against the horizon. The gathering were too late. They've begun. What do you mean? My heart pounded, the energy in the air crackling with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Look. She pointed at the stone platform. Figures began to assemble, cloaked in black, emerging like shadows from the depths of the night. Their movements were no longer obscured, I could see their faces now haunted, somber, with eyes glinting under the moonlight, speaking of profound resignations and lost hope. The dread pooled like ice in my veins. Before I could process our situation, a hand gripped my shoulder like a vice. I turned to see a boy, no, a young man standing beside me, wide-eyed and trembling. "You have to get out of here," he whispered urgently, his breath hot against my ear. "They take more than just souls." "Mark?" I gasped, the realization hitting me like a freight train. Could it really be him, standing before me as a phantom of our earlier lives? "Is it you?" "No time," he insisted, glancing back at the gathering shadows that danced behind him. "You have to warn them." Just then, the ground shook as an ear-splitting howl echoed through the clearing, drowning out Mark's words. The figures turned as one, their attention locked onto us with an unnatural awareness. My blood turned to ice as understanding washed over me. They weren't searching for Mark and Daniel, they were looking for us. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline coursing through me as my instincts kicked in. But instead of fleeing, I hesitated, battling the fear coiling in my stomach and the urge to save him. As the chanting grew louder, drowning out my thoughts, Mark held my gaze for one agony-stretched moment. "Don't look back," he urged, the raw desperation in his voice tearing at my insides. And suddenly, he was pulled into the throng, another shadow lost against the ebb of darkness. Disbelief washed over me like a tidal wave, confusion mixing with terror as I fought against the instinct to reach for him. Torn between the ache of a friendship that had survived so much and the throbbing urgency of escape, I turned away, Michael and Jenna already sprinting into the safety of the forest. I didn't look back. Not then. But as the howls and chants faded into the pack of shadows behind us, I realized that in the wild depths of the woods, I had made an unconscionable decision, one that would forever bind us to the truth I could not yet fathom. The thud of my heartbeat roared in my ears as I plunged deeper into the darkness of the woods, desperation driving my feet against the cold earth. Each step felt heavier, weighing me down with guilt for what I had left behind. Mark's pleading eyes lingered in my mind, an echo of trust shattered by fear. The further I ran, the more my burden intensified. How could we leave him? In spite of my frantic nerves, Jenna and Michael's silhouettes flickered in the corner of my vision, darting through the shadows with purpose. They weren't stopping, their determination anchored me even as my heartstrings pulled taut. There was no comfort in the raw adrenaline coursing through me, it only highlighted the chasm growing between us and the boys we sought to save. "We have to keep moving," Jenna said, her voice barely rising above the thundering chaos of the chaos we narrowly escaped. "The gathering is close. We must find a way to break it." I nodded, forcing my feet to carry me forward, yet the shadows of what we had just witnessed weighed heavily on my soul. But we can't just leave Mark. How do we know he is okay? What will happen to him? My voice cracked, revealing the bitter confusion roiling inside me. We can't help him unless we figure out how to stop this. If we're caught, we'll be right there with him. Michael shot back, glancing over his shoulder as if the darkness itself reached for him. We can't fail them. We're their last hope. And in that moment, I understood, despair served only to anchor us deeper into the web of fear the gathering spun. Yet how could I think of hope when all I felt was the frigid grip of loss? As if sensing my turmoil, Jenna slowed her pace, her brow furrowed in sympathy. We will find a way back for him, I promise. But we need to hear what the others know. You saw the symbols. There must be a way to reverse this summoned power. Right, I forced the words out, brushing the fear aside for the moment. The symbols. Maybe we can find someone who knows what they mean before it's too late. We breached another thicket and abruptly stumbled upon a small, dilapidated cabin nestled beneath the sprawling roots of an ancient tree. Was it even real? The remnants of wooden walls were crumbling, overtaken by creeping vines and thorny brambles. It could have been a refuge or a trap. What if there is someone inside? I whispered, hope flickering like a candle in a storm. Maybe they know what is happening. As if answering my plea, an elderly figure emerged from the shadows, a woman whose silver hair glimmered like moonlight against the dark of the cabin. Her eyes, deep and knowing, seemed to pierce through the veil of our fears. Come in, children, she beckoned with a frail but commanding voice. I've been expecting you. A shiver crept through my veins. Expecting us? The woods have long whispered your names, she replied cryptically, ushering us closer as she moved aside, revealing a clutter of strange artifacts within. You are not the first to seek knowledge of the gathering. With the door creaking behind us, we entered, the air thick with a strange amalgamation of herbs and an iron scent that stung my nostrils. As the door shut, the weight of the forest fell away, replaced by an unsettling intimacy. I can help you, she continued, her gaze unwavering. But first, you must face the truth of your bond with those you seek. They are closer than you imagine. What do you mean? Michael's tone crackled with anxiety, eyes darting around the room as if searching for the understanding to tether us back to sanity. The boys are intertwined with the gatherers in more ways than you can comprehend, she revealed, pulling a threadbare book from a shelf. You must decipher these symbols not just to set them free, but to uncover the depths of your connection. The ritual is not merely about them, it calls to all who wish to protect, chosen and unchosen alike. The price for their safety could cost you dearly. Her words wrapped around me like a web, constricting both my heart and mind. Each phrase unraveled a greater mystery, a truth I ached to avoid. My connection to Mark, to Daniel, our bonds made flesh by shared experiences, laughter, secrets they pulsed under the surface of this revelation, dangerously entwined with forces far darker than we had anticipated. What must we do? I breathed, desperate for urgency to return within my grasp. You must journey to the heart of the forest, where shadows and truth entwine. But beware, a truth found can often become a curse. Before I could respond, the cabin trembled. The walls vibrated as the chants echoed once more from beyond, swallowing the air around us. The gathering grows, the old woman warned. You have little time. Now go. Seek the heart beneath the stars. As the cabin jolted, light flickered, illuminating an intricately drawn map laid on the table. My heart raced. It bore the same symbols we'd seen at the platform. Looking at it, an overwhelming impulse gripped me. Suddenly, I recalled the elderly woman's gaze, sharp and knowing, as if she held pieces of our fragile fates in her hands. I felt something shift, a revelation on the brink of breaking through. But just as I reached for the map, everything went black. The ground shook violently beneath us. Move! Jenna shouted, but confusion spun around me like a cyclone of shadows. My grip on the map slipped, and I turned to see the cabin walls morphing, echoing into an abyss as the figures from outside swarmed towards us again, and as I braced against the chaos, I caught a fleeting glimpse of a figure emerging through the darkness, Mark, eyes wide with despair as if warning me of an unspoken truth that would shatter everything. The weight of my decisions pressed into me as pieces of fate fell into place, deeper than guilt, deeper than fear. What awaited us was a truth that could bind or break us, and it felt like the very fabric of time was unraveling around me. In that final heartbeat, as shadows converged and the ground quaked around us, I understood any choice could lead to unthinkable consequences. The darkness closed in around us like a looming storm, heavy and suffocating. I barely had time to process Mark's appearance before a deafening roar surged from outside the cabin, like a beast awakened from slumber. Panic twisted through me, sharp and invasive as I grappled with the implications of that fleeting vision, Mark vividly alive, yet seemingly trapped in a reality that was spiraling out of my control. "Leah, we have to go," Jenna yelled, her voice cutting through my fog of confusion. But I couldn't move, couldn't tear my eyes away from the shadow within the shadows. A familiar face. "Leah!" Michael's desperate cry jolted me. I turned, still clinging to my thoughts, even as the cabin felt like it was dissolving around us. Everything was blending, the past and present, hope and despair. "In here." The old woman gestured urgently, her fingers trembling but resolute. "Out back, the root cellar. It might buy you a moment." "Wait!" I shouted as I rushed towards the door, my heart pounding with the contrast of fear and longing. "What about Mark?" "Go," she insisted, her voice cutting with an authority that demanded respect. "Time is not on your side." With Jenna and Michael by my side, we barreled through the door just as a cacophony of primal howls invaded the air. We dodged towards the back of the cabin, scrambling down into the dark entrance of the cellar that felt like a grave. We landed in a damp space, the air stale with the scent of mold and the weight of despair. The darkness swallowed us whole, and I instinctively clutched the damp earth beneath my fingers, anchoring myself to something solid amidst the chaos. "Do you see him?" Michael whispered urgently as he pressed himself against the cellar wall, trying to peer out into the fuzzy spaces of light above. I shook my head, the hollow emptiness of my chest feeling as if it could swallow me whole. "No. I just saw him for a brief moment. We have to find a way to bring him back. We can't abandon him. Maybe he's okay." "Maybe," Jenna's voice faltered, echoing the fear that wove itself through her words. "Maybe we can find a way to free all of them from the gathering." The mention of the gathering allied with the darkness looming above felt like talons raking at my psyche. I had to pull myself away from my worry for Mark long enough to focus. We all had to be strategic now, our lives and his hung in the balance. As we crouched in silence, I realized something. The old woman had hinted at the connection between us and the boys, a bond stronger than we knew. Were Mark and the others aware of this truth while entangled in this horrific gathering? Did they suffer the same fate that awaited us now? Suddenly, the cellar door slammed shut and echoes of frantic steps echoed around us. We were not alone. My heart thudded with the realization. Shadows shifted near the top of the stairs. They were here. My breath came shallow as an overwhelming not quite furor washed over me, a panic mingling into something that felt like resolution. If Mark was still out there and he had been reaching for me from within the dark, then whatever hell lay above us could not claim us like it had claimed him. A flicker of determination set fire to my nerves. "We need to create a distraction. They might be looking for us," I whispered, urgency coursing through my words. "Maybe we can use the symbols. If they're connected to the gathering, perhaps they're our key." Michael shifted in the dim light, the pulse of his heartbeat matching the rhythm of urgency in the air. "We remember them. We've seen them, every single one, when we stumbled upon that altar." "Exactly," I insisted. "Jenna, can you recall the ones you saw? Maybe we can draw them on the ground here if we can find something." As Michael rifled through his pack for something to use, Jenna nodded, her expression strengthened by purpose. "Yes. That might just catch their attention long enough." With shaky hands, we began sketching frantically, the worn earth transforming into our canvas of hope as we traced the intricate designs the old woman had described. Despite the rising sense of dread, we harnessed our shared understanding of the symbols, trying to reconstruct them the best we could. As we scrawled our symbols of hope, I felt an unexpected warmth enveloping me. Deep within, a flicker of connection surged forth, echoing the bond that transcended our predicament. The symbols glowed slightly, luminescent, sparking a reluctant confidence beneath the impending shadows. Just as we finished, the cellar entrance burst open, light flooding in. A group of figures silhouetted against the chaos above, their roars of anguish and primal energy slicing through the darkness. Amongst them, I could be sworn I saw Mark, eyes blazing with an intensity one had never seen before. But right next to him stood someone I never expected, a figure with familiar features entwined with shadows, capturing my breath in my chest. Daniel. He was no longer just a background note in my life, he was here, looming in the tumultuous black sky as the darkness spun deeper. And behind them, an ominous figure, draped in a robe laden with the weight of knowledge and sorrow, a shepherd steering them toward the echoes we would soon realize were intertwined with our own fates. "Run!" Jenna yelled as the force of darkness clawed its way into our hearts, but as the ground shook beneath us and the walls exploded with the fury of shapes and shadows, all I could do was reach for a destiny cloaked in pain and uncertainty that lay just beyond my grasp. "Leah, this is worse than we thought," Michael shouted, the trepidation filtered through his voice like splitting glass. And deep down, I could feel the truth coiling around my insides like a serpent, whispering a horrifying caution. Was this tumult just the beginning? With a final desperate glance toward the figures bracing against the void, I knew whatever awaited us outside was something unimaginable. And as the darkness pressed upon us, I realized this was not just a fight for survival, but a battle against the truth that could unravel everything. And in that moment, as Mark and Daniel's figures darted away, I understood something far more devastating. They were not just lost shadows anymore, they were now interwoven into a truth that could very well cast us into unfathomable depths. The weight of the unfolding revelations pressed heavily upon me, amplifying the turbulent chaos in my mind. As I stood in that damp cellar, the world above shifting dangerously, I could not shake the sensation that everything was spiraling just beyond my reach. Time felt elastic, stretching with the gravity of the truths we were on the brink of uncovering. "Leah, we can't just sit here," Jenna hissed, her eyes flickering to the light pouring in from the entrance. "We need to make a move." "But what if we're walking right into their trap?" I replied, the doubt gnawing at my thoughts. Michael, still scanning the ground we had hastily etched with glimmers of hope, offered a steadying voice. "If that's Mark and Daniel out there, we have to help them. But we need to get organized. Perhaps regrouping means trying to understand what we're truly up against." I nodded, hardly reassured. Yet there was an undeniable bond binding us. If our fates were intertwined, I was more than willing to venture into the unknown. "Let us stick together. Whatever we do as one." In the sudden brightness of the cellar door, the shadowy figures began to form, growing closer. Mark appeared, a fire in his eyes that registered more than sheer defiance. Anguish wove itself through his expression, juxtaposed with something deeper, like a thread of mourning that flickered faintly beneath the surface. "Leah!" Mark shouted, his voice cutting through the thick air. The depth of longing and urgency in it was a staccato rhythm that drummed in my chest. He was alive, yet there was a heaviness about him that tied back to the gathering. "Mark!" I strained to reach him, as more figures crested the stairs. Another wave of individuals flooded through, unshackled by the earthy mold of the cellar. Among them was Daniel, his eyes glinting with an intensity that mirrored the very shadows that encircled him. The moment hung suspended in time, emotions crackling like electricity. "What happened to you?" I mustered, fear wrestling with a flicker of relief at seeing them both. Daniel's gaze swept the room, lingering on the symbols we had drawn. "We need to get you out of here now. You don't understand how far this goes." "Where were you?" I pressed, driven by the ache of unanswered questions. My heart clenched. "What did you see, Daniel? What happened in the gathering?" The others were stacking behind him, panting heavily, the air laden with their own burdens. His voice broke, hesitation cresting like a wave in the midst of a storm. It's worse than we could ever imagine. They've taken our identities, twisted them into as if they were mere pawns in a game. You're a part of it, Leah, we all are. Part of what? Michael fumed, pacing nervously. You only experienced the gathering, we're still lost in it. You can't just throw around words like they mean something without context. Daniel's face shifted, a shadow flitting over his features that caught my breath. The gathering is a ritual, a binding of souls, something we are meant to confront together. But the stakes are higher than just disappearing, it's about something far more sinister. I don't want to learn anything more, Jenna murmured, the tremor in her voice betraying her resolve. I just want to get out. Getting out isn't an option until we confront the truth, Mark interjected, a fierceness igniting behind his words. There's a reason they've marked us, and it ties into everything we know, everyone we've lost. We need to unearth that kernel of truth, or we will be consumed. The chilling echo of his words sank into my bones with a startling clarity. The atmosphere grew dense, the air shifting with unrelenting belief that something monumental loomed just beneath the surface, something that could exonerate my heart from the chains of anguish or shatter me beyond repair. Right now, we need to make a choice, Mark said, stepping forward, urgency imbued in every syllable. We either turn our backs on this and remain trapped in the darkness, or we push forward. It's not just our lives that depend on this, there are others we can't abandon. The fear was palpable, intertwining among us, yet there was an undeniable call of hope that resonated, an undeniable thread pulling us to uncover the shrouded truth. What do you mean by others? I felt more than just the resonance of the words, but the energy they emitted, echoing with potential. With every boy that vanished, Mark began, the weight of the world behind his eyes, there's been a loss, yes, but also a prisoner that remains hidden. The gathering holds them, Leah. And if we don't find a way to free them, to confront the shadows of our past, we will meet an end worse than just fading into nothing. As we clutched one another beneath the wave of uncertain lights and eternal shadows, something deep within me stirred, a promise whispering under the weight of our resolve. I pressed my palms together to steady the tremors that coursed through me. The truth is terrifying, Daniel warned softly, studying each of our faces. But burying it is more dangerous. If we stand together, we may have a fighting chance. In that moment of collective vulnerability, the roots of our fears intertwined like vines. I knew that stepping forward meant plunging deeper into the unknown. And just then, from the shadows a shriek pierced through, echoing through the cellar with an eeriness that sent shivers racing down my spine, riddling my thoughts with doubts I could scarcely contain. Get ready! Jenna yelled, fear propelling her voice as the ground seemed to shudder beneath us. They're coming! Dark figures swirled in the depths of the newly opened cellar door, ethereal wails manifesting like echoes of those who had been lost. And I rushed forward, grasping Mark's hand, bolstered by the profound connection we shared. Our choices were intangible, weighted by the uncertainty that clung to us. Shadows surged, decreeing fates that had cast our lives into disarray. There was no turning back. Outside the cabin, the echoes of fate awaited us, and the opening disclosure signified a beginning I never thought possible. The pulsating truth was rising like a tide, but we were already caught in its inescapable grip, teetering on the edge of despair. What awaited us in that fresh torrent of darkness was not merely an answer but a revelation that could change everything, and as the echoes of familiar voices mingled with the fears of the unknown, I wondered, were we stepping toward our salvation, or deeper into a chasm that would forever alter our lives? The shadows closed in fast, a creeping dread that slithered through the air like a rogue current. I could barely register Jenna's panicked shouts as they echoed around me. The urgency of her voice fused with the growls of darkness approaching from the cellar door. Leah! We have to go now. The heat of Mark's grip around my hand was the only tether keeping me anchored to this moment, to the hope of not just survival but of understanding the chaotic tapestry that had entangled our lives. Wait! I shouted, too desperate to comprehend the weight of our actions. We can't just run blindly. We need a plan. But my words fell on deaf ears as the others surged forward, their strides propelling them closer to the entrance, the sweet scent of freedom and danger intermingling in the air. Daniel lagged behind, his eyes darting over his shoulder like a deer sensing an approaching predator. "We don't have time to think, Leah," he urged, his voice strained. "I'm not running into the darkness without knowing what's waiting for us." My voice quaked, the battle between fear and resolve thrumming in my chest. I felt a mix of adrenaline and despair wavering beneath my skin, like a drumbeat laced with impending dread. The sacrifices of the past pressed down like a weight I couldn't shake off. Yet I also felt a flicker of defiance, a burning need to protect those I could. "Then there's no time like the present to face the truth," Mark replied with fierce determination. "You wanted to uncover what they're hiding. Now it's here, Leah. It's now or never." Before I could respond, dark figures poured into the cellar, shifting like smoke, chaotic and menacing. They seamlessly drifted around us, awash in shadows that sought to consume every last thread of hope we clung to. I felt a howl building in my chest, an instinct propelling me to fight rather than flee. "Leah, we must go." Mark's breath was hot against my ear, desperation mingling with a shared unyielding faith. I could see the twinkle in his eyes, a firm conviction blended with fear. The battle of consciousness within me raged. But just then, amid the encroaching terror, something incredible happened. From the darkness, a small figure emerged. The luminous glow from its core flickered like a fragile candle fighting against the gust of an approaching storm. My heart skipped a beat as the figure took shape, a boy, not much older than 13, his eyes wide and filled with burgeoning knowledge. "Help! Please!" he cried, his voice echoing even amidst the chaos. The moment he spoke, I knew instinctively that this boy was one of the vanished altar boys, the lost souls who became mere whispers in our town. "Stay close!" I shouted above the overwhelming rush of panic. I reached out, but he was still distant, as if caught in an alternate realm of reality. "Leah! We don't have time!" Jenna shouted again, glancing back towards me, grappling with the urgency of the moment, but I felt a surge of possibility. "I have to help him." My instinct kicked in, driving me toward the light emanating from the boy. He's one of them. He knows something. "Leah, no." Daniel's cry turned sharper, a warning laced with hesitation. "You can't trust what you see. It may be a trap." But the boy's pleading eyes captivated me, pulling on threads I'd never known woven into my heart. "I'm here. I'm trapped," he implored, gesturing toward the darkest warren of the cellar that I felt the tether of connection binding us in a way none of us had felt until now. "Mark," I said urgently, "we have to find a way to communicate with him. Divine light, Leah. It's fought for and earned through suffering," Mark declared, the conviction solidifying in his voice. "We must gather our strength and use it." Thick shadows roared around us as the figures shifted closer, tightening their grip. Yet within the boy's glow lay a warmth that radiated hope, drawing me toward him. "What do we need to do?" I asked, anchorless yet resolute. "Confront the truth. Lay bare your hearts, your lives. Only then can you see," he shouted, and the frantic energy of his words reverberated against the cellar walls, both a plea and a command. Before I could respond, the dark figures lunged forward, and chaos erupted. Mark pulled me back, wrapping his arms around me protectively. "We can't let them take you," he yelled, and I felt his determination wrap around us like armor. "Not without standing together." I managed to scream back, feeling the edge of reality trembling beneath our feet. Then desperation found strength at the heart of my soul. I let go of Mark's hand, rushing forward into the glow, desperate to shield this boy, to free him. "We are all bound together, even the lost. We'll fight to uncover the truth." At that very moment, another piercing scream echoed through the gloom. The shadows rippled, almost recoiling as if struck, revealing figures of anguished souls trapped beyond the veil. And in that blinding instant of bravery, a chilling revelation struck my core with a searing force. The truth behind those who had vanished lay deeper than I had ever imagined. It was woven into the very fabric of our souls, twisted and corrupt, always seeking to entwine itself within us that I braced myself, heart racing fiercely as the fragile glimmers of hope glittered within the endless dark surrounding us. I had made a choice, not only to face the imminent peril, but to risk everything in search of truth. But as the shadows swarmed close, clinging to us like a second skin, I wondered, was this the beginning of our salvation, or was I stepping into a despair that knew no end? The boy's figure shimmered, caught between existence and echo, drawing me further into the depths of an unimaginable truth. And as the darkness loomed nearer, I felt the intricate threads of our lives tighten, binding us together in ways I had yet to fully grasp, leading to a fate that may shift the very course of my heart. Would we emerge stronger, or would we unravel into the abyss? In that fierce moment, we would know soon enough. The shadows pressed in, their whispers mingling with the frantic pulse of my heart. I felt the tiny flicker of the boy's light becoming a beacon in the chaos, illuminating fear-laden faces and heavy hearts around me. Please. You have to hurry. The boy urged again, but around him, the darkness coiled like a serpent, eager to strike. I felt Mark's hand slipping from mine, anchoring me to sanity. Leah, don't. He cried, panic lacing his tone. I turned to him, anguish mingling with desperation in his eyes. Let them come. We'll create a barrier together. Just he was searching for words, his breath shallow. We can't lose you. No. If we don't do this, we might never know what happened. I shouted, my voice raw and defiant. We must trust in each other. Even as the shadows lunged closer and each heartbeat echoed louder, a profound silence enveloped me. I focused on the boy whose light flickered above the chaos. Something deep inside me shifted, hope stirred, fragile yet fierce, challenging the consuming darkness that I took a step towards him, my heart tethered to this unknown child caught in the turmoil of the past. Remember us. I yelled, my words ringing like a bell in the hall of despair. You're not alone anymore. In that declaration, a strange sensation rippled through us. The dark figures hesitated, their ghastly forms quivering as the boy's glow pulsated brighter, almost flaring in response. I gripped the air, feeling the thread of connection tightening again, something shifting within the very walls of the cellar. Together, I urged, turning back to look at Mark, Jenna, and Daniel. We can do this. Everybody hold on to the truth. Whatever it is, don't let it go. Mark and Daniel exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them, something forged in the fires of shared trials. Jenna nodded, a fierce light igniting within her grass-green eyes. We are the truth. She declared, her voice steady like a shield. The shadows seemed to recoil, confusion flickering amongst their ranks. It was as if they had never encountered anything like this unyielding strength born from despair. Feel the light, I urged everyone, drawing the strength from the warmth in our linked hands. Let it flow through you. In that moment, the boy's figure shifted, and his light became a conduit, pouring into each of us, igniting a fire that spread through our veins. I felt strength bloom, weaving through my limbs, coursing and crackling like electricity. The darkness faltered, momentarily subdued, but still seated beyond our reach. As we drew strength from one another, I felt the weight of the vanished altar boys' stories pressing against me, their graves filled with whispered truths longing to be unveiled. The shadows curled back, pulling in like a curtain drawn across a window, place after place growing dimmer, revealing glimpses of the lives that once thrived and the promises that had been made, and then, out of nowhere, an anguished scream sliced through the stillness, a voice I recognized too well. Jenna! I cried, whipping around to find her being yanked backward into deeper folds of darkness, her fingers slipping through our shared grip. No! In a flurry, I lunged, reaching desperately as she clawed at the air, terror carving lines of despair across her face. Help me! She shouted, but the shadows pulled relentlessly, eager to feast on her fear. I felt my heart threaten to splinter, the world tilting dangerously between hope and tragedy. Break the bond. You have to save her. The boy yelled, his flickering glow dimming in the absence of our stronghold. The words clawed at my mind, and amidst the thundering chaos, I realized that holding on would cost us more than we were prepared to give. "No!" Mark shouted, determined yet frantic as he reached out for Jenna. But the shadows surged again, the darkness hungry for despair. "Leah!" Jenna's voice cracked, desperation seeping through. My breaths turned heavy, each one a reminder of the impending loss of how quickly things could shift from unity to separation. Terror clawed at my throat. In this moment, racing against time and weaving myself into the fraying fabric of our strength, I knew it was now or never. "Let her go!" I cried, a fierce declaration born from the deepest wells of my core. The shadows shifted and snarled as if recoiling from the very essence of what we were becoming, the collective as extraordinary as the fragile light of hope we had shed together. At that moment, I felt a gateway opening, an understanding I had to face the truth within me as Jenna did too. She was more than just my friend, she was our guiding light, a keeper of truth just as much as I was. The realization struck me like a bolt of lightning. "I'm here. Don't you dare let go," I called back to her. As our gazes locked, an unspoken promise began to stitch itself into our hearts, an eternal bond transcending the shadowy void before us, but just then, a horrific screech cut through the darkness. A shadow that had managed to storm our defenses lunged toward her, wrenching free her grasp. "No!" Mark roared, but it was too late. Relentless, blinding terror, darkness enveloped Jenna, swallowing her light whole. The last echoes of her voice faded into desperate silence, leaving behind a dismal chasm that swallowed the souls of our past, present, and future. I felt my heart plummet, an unfathomable loss congealing in my chest. In a frenzied connection to the boy, we shared a glance that spoke of a known fate. "The truth is reluctant, but it will come," he whispered, his glow flickering more violently, the shadows gathering menace. I could feel the threads of my despair intertwining with our collective strength, weaving through grief and determination. The depth of Jenna's absence flooded through me, but alongside it emerged a surge of fierce resolve, revealing what lay ahead was uncertain, but no longer about fear. As the shadows dared to surge forward again, twisted with anger and hunger, I clenched my fists, ready to claw my way through whatever peril awaited us. I would not lose sight of Jenna's light, nor would I abandon my pursuit of the truth. With a furious resolve, I took a step forward, feeling the boy beside me solidify into something more than just a flickering mirage. "We won't stop until we find you, Jenna," I shouted to the darkness, our bond reshaping into an unbreakable force. In that moment, I understood that the revelation ahead would not only unveil lost secrets but forge a path through the darkness I had never imagined possible. The truth about the vanished boys, the unseen terror lurking within our town, and the haunting tales of friendship sealed by sacrifice. They beckoned, no longer just whispers but thunderous calls to reclaim what was ours. But just as we prepared to step deeper into the abyss and confront whatever horror lay ahead, I felt a rumble beneath my feet. The ground beneath us shuddered violently, as if awakening from a long-forgotten slumber. And then, without warning, everything imploded into chaos. The darkness around us erupted in waves, crashing against my senses like an avalanche of terror. "Hold on!" Mark's voice rang out above the tumult as we struggled to maintain our balance amidst the chaos spiraling within the cellar. The dim light flickered erratically, illuminating the cavern walls that pulsed like the heartbeat of the forest itself, their shadows mingling with our anguish and resolve. "Don't let it consume you." The boy's voice echoed, an anchor amidst the storm of chaos. Despite the overwhelming darkness, I could feel the heat of our connection fueled by loss, pain, and an unyielding will to fight for those we loved. "Fight!" I shouted back, my voice resonating with newfound strength. "We stand together. We are not alone." With that vow, the bonds of our friendship became tangible, weaving through the haze of despair. The shadows lunged, but as they did, we joined forces to stand firm, not as individuals seeking our own survival, but as a united front. Every pulse of the dark energy felt like an invisible thread that sought to undo us, but instead, we twisted those threads into strands of light that flickered defiantly. I focused on the boy, his whispered truths piercing through the noise. "You have to face the truth, only then can you truly shine." Instinctively, I knew that embracing the truth, our own truths, was the pathway to overcoming whatever malevolence threatened us. Together, Mark and Daniel shouted, their voices a rallying cry as we raised our hands as one. In a synchronous motion, we closed our eyes and summoned the memories of our shared experiences, the laughter, the prayers, the moments before we lost each other. Each memory ignited a burning light that swelled within us, merging into a blinding beacon that pushed the shadows back, and just as the darkness roared and twisted, a dazzling light enveloped us, stretching towards the shadows as if to challenge their very existence. It felt alive, a pulse that resonated through time and space, bridging the present with our past and evoking a sense of closure for all we had endured. But then, I felt it, the familiar tug of a presence, not lost but aching, Jenna's essence entwined within the very fabric of the moment. "Seize it, Leah. Find me." Her voice flowed through the air, not just a plea but a rallying cry of determination that intertwined with my own. I steadied my thoughts, reeling in the loss that connected us even stronger than before. "We will," I shouted with conviction, and in that split second, I saw her luminous face before me, ethereal and real, surrounded by the flickering remnants of our camaraderie. "Together, we reclaim the truth," I roared, the command surging from deep within. The shadows writhed with frustration, and in that chaos, thousands of muffled whispers echoed within us, a choir of lost boys, their latent dreams merging, begging to be unbound, and suddenly the ground began to surge beneath us, shaking off dust that clung like forgotten memories. The once threatening shadows hovered uncertainly, flickering as if battling the weight of our collective resolve. "Now," Mark commanded, and we spread our arms wide, channeling every ounce of energy until I felt an explosion of light surge from my chest, filling the space around us. In that blinding moment, everything shifted. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of anguish surging back as we twinkled with newfound fury, defiance spilling from our souls. There, slivers of truth began to emerge from the brilliant light, echoes of laughter, prayers whispered in longing, and dreams that had once flickered out. That I locked eyes with my companions, and felt the laughter of the boys, the joy, the childhood they wished to reclaim and remember. The truth was a force, raw and unpolished, igniting within us the flame we needed to push the darkness away. "Let them find us." Jenna's voice rang clear within my mind, a promise echoing outwards as the shadows began to retreat, hesitating, uncertain. All the sorrow, pain, and longing poured forth from our hearts into the growing light, and at that moment, everything balanced. Delicately on the precipice of revelation, yielding to the power of truth, I closed my eyes again. "Wherever you are, we find you," I shouted into the abyss. The words hung heavy in the air, offering a lifeline filled with hope, and then it happened. One by one, the lost boys began to emerge from the void beyond the shadows, their forms shimmering with the glow of truth, a brilliant array of light breaking through darkness, memories long buried finding their way back home. I recognized them, each face illuminated with recognition. Mark, Daniel, their hands entwined with those we had fought so hard to save. "Jenna!" I shouted, realizing she was entwined among them, her spirit interwoven with a collage of flickering memories, smiles, and laughter. "Never let go," she echoed, her smile forming like the sun's warmth morning after a daunting night. As their illuminated figures joined our radiant sphere, we became a pulsating entity together in full embrace of our interconnected fates. The darkness that had threatened to consume our existence was eclipsed by the splendid light brimming from our hearts, illuminating every painful fracture and scar, and as the chaos dissipated, I knew the truth we had feared was not the end, but rather a new beginning. It was the culmination of loss blended with empathy, guiding us through the fathoms of despair toward an awakening filled with shared memories, igniting newfound courage. We emerged from the remnants of that darkness, each of us carrying more than just anguish. We would carry the stories of those we lost, their echoes forever tethered to our souls. And as our eyes opened to a new dawn, I looked into the faces of my friends, the beloved souls who anchored my heart, and felt the essence of all we had endured together meld into a singular moment, resilient, defiant, and resolute. "Together, we define who we are," I whispered to Mark, Jenna, and Daniel as we stood amidst the remnants of what once felt disjointed and chaotic, a testament to the perseverance of our spirits, and with that, the first light of a new day bathed us in warmth, we were not lost nor defined by shadows, but forever transformed by a truth unveiled, the strongest of bonds that would never tremble in the darkness again. Finally, I whispered, we are whole. Everything before us stretched infinitely, a horizon brimming with hope, laughter, and unbreakable ties of friendship, a call of love echoing long after we had become one.